this is going to be one of those things on your CV that can really help differentiate you, especially coming from a lesser known school. And so the students that come from some of the top level medical schools, they're actually just given research projects and they basically have to do the bare minimum to get a publication out of it. And I know this because I've worked with students from some of those schools and they essentially have not had to put in a lot of effort for it. And the thing is if you're coming from either a DO school or you're coming from a lesser known MD school, you're going to have to go a little bit harder. But as one of my mentors always told me, he's like, if you have to go harder than them, then you just go harder than them. That's all that it takes. And so whenever you're in this process, the very first most basic step, and many of you guys have probably already done this, is you can ask your professors. And so whenever I was in M1 and M2, what I did is I actually made a list of every professor that was involved in anything surgical because I knew I wanted to go down the surgery path. And after I had exhausted those options, I actually started reaching to non-surgical professors. And so since I was interested in vascular as well as geriatrics, I started reaching out to some of the professors that dealt with those categories. And so I ended up getting a publication from one of the rheumatology professors simply because he had seen some peripheral artery disease in the clinic and he had a unique presentation of a case. And I submitted that case presentation for publication. And so you never know where an opportunity is going to come. So what you should do, every single person in here, you should find at least 5 to 10 professors, go to the website, basically find their emails, shoot them off an email saying, hey, I'm an M1 or an M2, I'm interested in research. Do you have any opportunities, or do you know of anybody that has any opportunities that I can help out with? It doesn't have to be a bench research. I'm interested in clinical. I will take any kind of unique presentation of a case. Let's go. What can I do? And so just putting your feelers out there is the first step. It's the most basic, but this is something that everybody should be done with by the end of this weekend. So if we're talking timelines of how to accomplish your goals, this is step number 1. Should not take you more than 24 to 48 hours to get this done. Otherwise, you're going to just keep pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. Pretty soon you're an M2 or an M3 and you don't have any research yet. And that's obviously not the position you want to be in because it's an easy way to build your CV. Because imagine the feeling of when you get to your interview, they put your CV on the table and it smacks the table and weighs it down because you got so much on there. That's a lot different vibe than when you're like, oh, well, I have this one experience I want to talk about. Like, it gives you a lot more confidence. And so that's the first step. So I want everybody to make an effort to start looking into that this weekend. All right. And so with professors, oftentimes, since they're in such a teaching setting, they might not have a lot of exposure to patients. So with that being said, you may not get an interesting case out of an interaction with a professor, which is okay. The next step is you want to talk to any residents that you know. So if anybody is interested in surgery, you're welcome to reach out to me or anybody else. And I'll talk about some unique opportunities at the end of today's call that anybody that's here is invited to essentially join. And I'll talk about that a little bit once we're finishing up here. So if a resident is in your specialty that you're applying for, you need to reach out to them because essentially any type of project that is not within the realm of your specialty is helpful, but it's not essential. So I would much rather you do projects that are in the field of specialty that you want to go into. And I totally get it that you're not always going to find that in the beginning. So in the beginning, M1 and M2 years, take any opportunity you can. M3 and M4 years, you want to be honing down into the more specific for what you are trying to do. That way that you're not putting in a CV that has pediatrics plus radiology plus rheumatology plus geriatrics plus surgery all as all your different research experiences, because that shows lack of focus. So in the beginning, you build up, you start getting momentum, you get as much opportunities as possible. Essentially, I turned down nothing as an M1. I took every single opportunity because you never know where it will lead. You might end up with something that's crazy down the line and you never know. I saw somebody mention in the chat, does it have to be a NOVA professor? The answer is absolutely not. In fact, if you know professors from other schools, that's absolutely awesome because now you're broadening your reach. So if you have friends in other schools, if you have connections at other schools, family, anybody like that, you want to reach out to them. So absolutely does not have to be a NOVA professor. So you reach out to your professor, you reach out to any residents you know, but what if you don't know any residents or the professors say they don't have anything? The third step is you can reach out to anybody that you've ever shadowed. So any physician that you shadowed while in high school or college, reach out to them and ask them if they have any interesting cases. And so that's all you got to say. Have you seen any interesting cases that I may be able to submit for a case presentation? And a lot of the time they'll say, no, I don't really have any cases, but that's fine. Once they respond back to that, ask them, do any of your colleagues have anything interesting that I may be able to present? So you never want to just leave a dead end and just leave the email trail kind of like falter out and peter off into existence. Because I promise you, stuff that a lot of attendings think is not that interesting is stuff that's still able to be published and stuff that's still able to be presented at conferences. My first two publications that were abstracts that I submitted to the Florida Vascular Society conference, they were essentially very, very standard cases. They were not out of the blue. They were not something that is like a 1 in 10 million case. What I actually did is I found these cases. I looked up the most recent guidelines for the management of these cases. And what I did is I went to the conference and I told them, hey, I have these cases, but what I would like to do is present this from a med student's perspective. And so I'm not trying to teach the attending stuff that they already know. They obviously are going to know infinitely more about the topic than you do. It's your job to get as up to speed as possible on that topic, but still at the end of the day, they're going to know more, most likely. And so your job is to teach from a medical student's perspective what you learned, what you gained, how that people are able to benefit from this talk, because there's going to oftentimes be mid-level providers at these conferences. There might be an APRN or a PA or even other med students that can gain knowledge from your talk. And actually, what the two presentations that I did, I taught from a medical student's perspective. They ended up publishing my abstract for them because they felt that it was a good summary of the recommendations of the current literature. And so there's all kinds of ways that you can get easy publications like that. And I actually stumbled across that by accident. I didn't even know that was a possible way to get a publication. And that's one of the things that you're going to kind of see through the time of today's talk is there's a lot of opportunities for publications that you just don't even know exist out there. And so that's one of them. The next thing that I would look into is figure out if there's any research coordinators that you guys can reach out to at your program. And so from time to time, I remember being at Nova that there'd be somebody that was in the position, then they would get fired, then somebody would transition out, and it was just impossible to reach anybody. So this route never yielded me any returns, but maybe it will for you guys. The only word of caution with a lot of these research coordinators is a lot of their projects are often long-term commitments. And like I said earlier on, that was not my goal. I didn't want something that's going to be like a 3-4 year long project. I wanted to get in, get out, get my name out there and make an impact. And so keep that in mind. If that's something you're interested in, if you like continuity on a long-term project, then that might be the best option for you. But if not, then skip over that step. The next thing I would do, and I would make this a goal to have accomplished by Wednesday of this upcoming week, is I would reach out. Well, first off, I would make a list of all the local physicians in the area that are in the specialties you're interested in. So make a list of 20 to 50 different physicians. And so all you could do is go on Google, type in, say, local vascular surgeon near me or local EM near me, and you find the physicians on there, make a spreadsheet and find their contact information. A lot of them will have emails for the program that they're at, or they might have a clinic office number. Put it in the spreadsheet. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the chunking time-saving skill to chunk all this at once and do it all simultaneously. So you're going to contact every local physician on your list, and I would recommend it at least 20 to 50 because otherwise you don't have a big enough group to even make any impact. So all these people, take one afternoon and just call them all. You can send emails, but I promise you they're probably not going to respond unless they're just feeling really nice that day, because attendees get millions of emails. Most of them just clear out their inboxes in a split second because who wants to read a bunch of nonsense? And they don't know that you might be able to help them out and they might be able to help you out. And it's a mutual relationship, because a lot of people make the mistake of when they reach out of just asking like, how can you help me? Whereas you need to be portraying yourself as, how can I help you? And in the meantime, I can get a case to present out of this relationship. Because think about it. If somebody reaches out to you and you're a busy attending, you got 80 hours a week you're working, you got a family, like you're not going to want to go way out of your way to help somebody. So you want to portray how you can help them as well. So, hey, like I would like to bring to light some of the stuff you've been doing. I heard about your cases. They sound really interesting. Is there anything I can do to help? However you want to word that is fine, but that's the vibe that you want to give when you're reaching out to these people. And so make it your goal by Wednesday of this upcoming week to go out and contact at least half of that list of 20 to 50 people. Because if you email them, they're probably not going to respond. If you call them, you're going to get a hold of somebody. It might be a secretary, it might be an assistant. They will be the gatekeepers. And if you can portray yourself as a convincing enough argument of why you need to talk to this physician, then you might be able to get your foot in the door. You might be able to at least have them take a message. And if they want to call you back, they can. So you're going to get 99 no's to every one yes. I'm going to be real with you. And I did this. The reason why I'm telling you guys to do these steps is because this is exactly what I did. And it ends up paying off. But you get so many no's that it gets really discouraging. I want to say I probably had 25 or 30 no's before anybody said yes. So that's just to give you that's the reason why I say 20 to 50 at least. So that's the next step that I would do. And so if you are reaching out to people at a local program, you can ask if they have any colleagues. If it's at an academic institution, then oftentimes they can direct you to somebody that has a project going or somebody that is their research coordinator for the academic institution. All right, I think I got a question in the chat here. For a first step, would it be better to contact professors or local physicians on our list? So with this being said, the order I'm going through this is how I would do this. So I would contact professors first, knock it out, because if they have anything going on, it's easy because they already know you. So they're more likely to say yes. If it's a local physician, they probably have never heard of you. So it's more likely to say no, but it may yield a better result long-term. So that would be my advice for that. If all that fails, so now we're talking maybe you've been working on this for a week or two, you haven't had any results. What's the next step? The next step is I would go to Frida. If you guys have been on the Frida website, it's FREIDA, and go to the website and essentially go through the list of every single program coordinator at every program within driving distance of you. And so you can find all the program coordinators for all the residency programs, and you can contact them and say, hey, I'm an M1, I'm really interested in your program, but I also wanted to see if I could get any research experience with any of your individuals in your program so I could get my foot in the door. Obviously, word it as eloquently as possible, and I'd be glad to help you guys if you have any questions with that. But you can actually contact the program coordinators who are essentially the secretaries for residency programs, and they will be able to guide you towards where you need to go with contacting either the attendings or contacting a resident who has a project underway. And they're essentially the gatekeepers that you guys need to know. And guess what? This kills two birds with one stone, maybe even three. Because now, if you get a project out of this, awesome. Now you got a connection with a resident or attending. And now you also got your connection with the program coordinators. They're the ones that receive all your applications for residency. So they're the gatekeepers for residency as well. So now they've seen your name multiple times. They know that you're working hard and you're making connections as an M1 or M2, which a lot of people don't do. And so they're going to remember when your page slides across their desk, they're going to be like, oh, Christopher was out here grinding, and I remember him as an M1 or M2. He got a publication out of working with us. So let me take special note of his residency application. So it kills a lot of birds with one stone. So that's a really strong move that you guys can take. And I would say the timeline for that is the next 2 weeks or so, just to give you guys broad timelines. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on. I know everybody's always got tests, but trust me, you never get to a point where it's just easier. Like, you're always going to have tests. You're always going to have other commitments. Life happens. So make it an effort that if you're here today, you're listening to this talk, that you're going to take action on these steps. So that would be my next thing. And if you guys need the website, it's https://Frida, FREIDA.AMA-ASSN.org. And you can just Google for Frida if you need to, but that's the website for it. So that's an extremely, extremely powerful move. So now we've talked about 4 or 5 different ways that you could obtain research. Those are some of the basic intro ways to get it. If all that fails, which if you're very adamant about this, you're not going to have failed this far into the process. You're going to have found something that is at least yielding some kind of a project or some kind of level of interest into what you're looking for.